This is the most unfortunate diver I've ever seen. He had barely submerged when a firefighting helicopter arrived to collect water. Amazingly, he ended up trapped inside the water bucket. However, the helicopter pilot, completely unaware of his presence, lifted the bucket and headed straight for the wildfire site. Jack desperately struggled inside the bucket, but nobody could hear him. Upon reaching the fire zone, the pilot opened the bucket's release valve. Sometime later, Jack was jolted awake by thick smoke. Looking at the raging inferno nearby, he realized he was trapped in the heart of the wildfire and needed to find a way to save himself. Therefore, Jack quickly removed his diving fins and put on his glasses. Just as he tried to stand up, the dense smoke knocked him back down. He could only crawl along the ground, but even this proved futile. The smoke was becoming increasingly suffocating, and he knew he would soon die from asphyxiation if something didn't change. Just at this moment, Jack spotted an oxygen tank hanging from a tree. Fighting through the smoke, he climbed up to retrieve it. However, because the tank was so heavy, he fell from the tree while grabbing it. This time, Jack wasn't so lucky. A branch impaled his stomach. Clutching his wound, he managed to sit up, and despite the excruciating pain, strapped the oxygen tank to his body. Finally, he could breathe again, if only temporarily. But with the oxygen supply lasting just over 30 minutes, he had to find a way out of the forest before it ran out. Jack gazed into the distance and spotted a fire lookout tower at the edge of his vision. Someone should be on duty there who could help him. He oriented himself and headed toward the tower. At this time, the helicopter returned with a full load of water to fight the fire. Jack shouted desperately for help, but the helicopter crew couldn't hear or see him as they flew directly overhead. He had no choice but to continue forward, holding his wound. At this point, he discovered a firefighter lying on the ground. Judging by the burns covering the body, the firefighter had likely perished while battling the blaze. Jack retrieved a radio from the body, but no matter how many times he called for help, nobody responded. His hopes were dashed once again. Fortunately, he stumbled upon an abandoned RV along the way. After treating his wound as best he could inside the vehicle, Jack fell asleep. By nightfall, Jack was again awakened by thick smoke. He turned toward the window and saw that the wildfire hadn't been extinguished and was rapidly spreading toward the RV. Realizing it wasn't safe to stay, Jack hurriedly grabbed the oxygen tank and set off again. By the next day, billowing smoke had enveloped the entire forest. At this point, the oxygen in his tank was nearly depleted, but he had finally reached the base of the lookout tower. This was Jack's last hope. He shouted up at the tower, but received no response. Only then did Jack realize that this fire lookout tower was completely unmanned.